thank you all for coming. Appreciate you guys being here. We're going to be talking about fitness through the ages tonight and kind of a perspective from our standpoints from the youth to the elderly. I'll talk about Keith and I here in a little bit. Keith and I we've been around all sorts of age groups, so this is kind of a unique one for us to talk about. Obviously, I'm Kyle. I have my master's degree in sport administration. We both went to UNC, and that is where we got our sport and exercise science degree. And that's where we met each other. So we've known each other for a long time. We were roommates in college, got to study the same stuff, and then had a love for obviously this field, and have been able to be in it ever since, which is pretty cool. I went on to get my some certifications. So I got my CMES as medical exercise specialist, and then the CPT is the personal trainer certification. So those are just things that helped kind of further my career to be able to help me, I think, best serve the populations that we have here and at SOAR. And so that's where this talk, I think, is going to be really cool, because we work with kids as young as 4th grade all the way up to, I think our oldest client right now is like 87 years old. So we've been able to see all these stages that we're going to talk tonight, and we're going to kind of give our perspective and some recommendations and some ideas of kind of what to think about with exercise and all that stuff. But I'll let Keith talk about him.
Yeah, I'm Keith. I got my bachelor's in exercise science with a minor in nutrition. And then about 9 years ago, I became a certified strength and conditioning specialist. So that's through the NSCA. It's more tailored towards sport performance, but it kind of covers everything too. Like Kyle was saying, now we have about 20 years of experience with all sorts of populations. So we kind of want to bring our perspective to what research and stuff there is out on the internet, and just kind of talk to you guys about it and see what you guys think about it too from your own experiences. So, let's get going. So there's about 5 different categories of ages we want to go through. 3 to 11, 12 to 18, 19 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 100 years old. And within each of these ages, we're going to go through those 5 points, the benefits, things you should be aware of, contraindications, recommendations. We give some sample plans, and then we want questions. We love questions. We want to hear your thoughts, questions on things you want to know about, any science, anything like that too. Sound good? All right. So youth, 3 to 11 years old. So this one, for many years, about 6, 7 years, Kyle and I really focus on, when it comes to youth, like 6th grade and above. Then we started taking 4th and 5th graders, and now we've started training like a 2nd grader. Fascinating age group to train because they're all over the place. Herding cats, that whole thing. But simply put, the benefits, you'll know some of these benefits, it's lifelong. Goes through all the ages. So that kind of speaks to how important exercise is from 3 years old all the way to 89 years old. Improves attention and memory, reduces risk of depression even at that age. Helps you build strong muscles. Amy? Endurance, improves blood pressure and aerobic fitness, resistance to injury. This one, the reduced risk of several chronic diseases, type 2 diabetes, obesity and stuff. That's a huge one, right? Especially in America today. Because we see just such a high prevalence of that in youth. Helps strengthen bones and then regulate body weight and reduce body fat. So those are all pretty generic just to growing up too, but it kind of just enhances those things if you're active right at that age. Now, I'm sure if you've ever been around that age, you know that team-based stuff is super critical to building any sort of social skills, teamwork, stuff like that. And also helps just encourage the kid to keep in that type of fitness mode, fun mode. And then for the really youngsters, 3 to 5-year-olds, it's pretty much let's get them moving in a safe way, right? And if we can get them to start just like learning their body, stop being a Bambi, Gumby, type of character, that's the best way we can help those kids. Any quick questions about the benefits? It's pretty straightforward. Get them moving, teach them good habits, encourage them, help them have fun.
What do you guys do with a 3-year-old?
So we haven't had a 3-year-old
You
yet.
have a second grade.
Yeah. So we'll get into that too, is like, there's certain things that like, maybe they shouldn't be at least at like our business store for this stuff. Maybe they should be out with other kids their age playing soccer or something like that. Right. Contraindications. All that contraindication means is things that would cause Kyle and I to be like, let's go talk to your doctor or a provider or somebody before you get into this type of training. Right. I think for any sport, anything like that should always kind of be at a parent's mind of like, should my kid be doing this based on what I know about their history, medical history, anything like that. So some chronic, health conditions that young, like if they have bad asthma or diabetes or any of those health conditions, that's one, like, say if a kid came in here or a store and it's like, parents are like, oh yeah, he has a heart deformation or something like that. We'd have to be like, hold on, let's talk to your doctor. Let's get that information first. Make sure the doctor's okay with this type of exercise. And then we can go from there. That also gives an idea of like how we need to tailor certain programs to them. Right. And that's very important too, going forward, is everyone's different. Everyone can do different things better or worse than the other person. Behavioral. So this is a huge one. Like if your kid comes in and he can't pay attention, is messing up all the other kids. So there's certain situations where he shouldn't just be exercising with us or with a certain group. Like that's when it's like, okay, I'm paying this money for this kid to get trained in this way and it's not working. It's like, okay, let's try something else. It doesn't have to be one shoe fits all on that one. And then sometimes kids grow at different rates. And so they could be a deer on ice and they're just tripping all over the place. And that's a danger to them, danger to other kids too. And that's, another aspect where as trainers, we have to be like, okay, let's get you in this easier program, or let's think about one-on-one stuff or something like that. Right? Any questions there? Cool. So sample plan. Speaking from our experience, if you ask a 4th grader, let's do a typical warm up, strength exercises, jumping and running, they're going to look at you and be like, right, where's the fun stuff? What are we going to do for fun? So we kind of have had to kind of develop over time. And as we see certain styles of kids, certain behaviors and stuff, like what brings the most kids in for fun and gets like some training in. So what we've noticed, a 10-minute warm up, structure, and it can even be something like tag, or we have this dice where you roll a dice and it says like, oh, you got to do 15 burpees. And you give the kids the dice and they're like, oh, what are the dice? That gets them engaged that way, right? Always making it somehow they can be engaged in what they're doing is a big thing. Because if you just like talk at them, right, you'll see them, right? You start looking around or like messing with the grass or something like that. Now, a lot of days we can take them through this first bullet point, the walking, knee pull, quad pull, all those exercises. And that's a dynamic warm up. So all that is warming up through motion and not just like sitting there stretching. Motion with these kids, keeping them moving, like that's a huge, that keeps their brain engaged, their energy going, all that. For the workout, it depends on the group, depends on the kids. Sometimes you get them to really focus in for a good solid 15 minutes. And then it's like, I've lost all of these kids. Right. And that's okay. That's kind of the age. We usually plan for a 15 to 25 minute core workout. And then we try and do something fun where it's specific to like, okay, now we're going to play tag. I mean, tag's a great like agility thing too. So as trainers, we see like, oh, they're moving quick. We're trying to catch each other. They're having fun. Like it's fantastic. But for like, we want to see basic movements with these kids, and it's not anything crazy. It's like, can you squat? Can you sit down? Okay. Can you like do a push-up? Can you like pull yourself up on a bar type thing? You just look at the basic motions. If they don't master those motions, or we see that they struggle with that, it's like, okay, we know we're not going to give this kid any weight. We're not going to make him do any of these crazy moves. Let's just do some squats. Let's give you a ball to throw while you do squats so you have fun. And then as much as we can, we're like, okay, hey, try, move your feet this way or sit back, or, just always get them to think about like, okay, that's what that feels like. I'm going to start doing that now. And that goes across the boards with squats, lunges, push-ups. That's where you have to start, is the basic motions, right? That kind of just makes logical sense. And then the cool down, good luck. We try and get them to do just basic stretches for all the groups of muscles that they worked, right? And you just kind of have to be patient and be like, okay, now we're going to do this. And they'll do it for a second or two. And then they'll be like, was that 10 seconds? No. Okay, let's do it for 5 more seconds, So kind of learned a lot of patience working through some of these plans, adding in a lot of fun stuff, a lot of engaging stuff that also mimics kind of the motions and stuff we're going for, right? Any questions on what a sample plan might look like when it comes to exercise, fitness, anything like that? Okay, so the biggest question ever with this age range is, should they use weights? Has anyone heard that before about lifting heavy weights, anything like that? So in our field, that's a big deal. The cool thing is, most research points to it's totally okay for kids to use weights, but you have to like pay extra attention to, like I was saying, their form, where they're at maturity wise. And they always have to be watched no matter what. So yeah, there's 6 points, maximal lifting. You don't need that for a kid that age. You really don't. High rep ranges, because heavy weight, it has been linked to like hurting growth plates and stuff like that. You want to always avoid that type of risk at that age. And then kind of we're big on form first. Once you get the form, I don't care if we do 8 weeks of just body weight squats. Like, we're not going to give you weight if you can't master form first. I shouldn't say master, but proficient. Progression, even for these kids, it's like you can't just expect them to follow the same curve as another great kid or another kid that had challenges. And it's kind of like we build a framework and they work within it, and we understand they might not be as far or they might be farther. And then rest time, like even though they're running and jumping, all the time, it's like sometimes you're like, slow down for this next thing to work. I need you to just sit for 30 seconds. Okay. Any questions overall on like the use 3 to 11 years old? Cool. All right. Up next, we have the teens.
So back to kind of the last one, or a little bit of experience with the younger ones. I have a almost 5-year-old, and our biggest goal with that age for him right now, we have him in he tried flag football, he tried soccer, he's doing tumbling right now. I think tumbling is super cool for kids at that young age, because there is all sorts of stuff that they get to do and work on, and it teaches basic coordination, and they're having fun. And those are stuff that can lead to helping build those kind of building blocks of what they're going to be doing maybe in middle school and high school and stuff like that. So yeah. But yeah, moving on to kind of older children or teens. So we're kind of thinking more like the 12 to 18 years old. Again, you're going to see some of these benefits are going to match up in each kind of category with some different ones depending on the age range. But this is Keith and I's kind of bread and butter in terms of who we train over at SOAR. A little bit more sports performance based over at SOAR is kind of what we're doing over there, but it's mostly middle schoolers and high schoolers. And so we've been doing that for about 10 years now. But obviously as kids are getting to that even pre-puberty or getting to that puberty stage, I mean, you guys can either remember yourselves or some of your kids who can go through that big growth spurt, and then all of a sudden it's like they got these lanky, kind of newborn giraffe thing going on, right, where they can't use their limbs. So I love when middle schoolers come in because, man, if you can break those habits early, that's going to follow them into high school, especially if they're continuing to lift and stuff like that for sports or just for fitness. So definitely important for coordination and muscular imbalances that they may develop. They can build proper form and mechanics. We kind of talked about that, breaking the bad habits. Physical health, some things obviously that just are going to go along with all sorts of stuff throughout life. We know this, but it is important, especially like if these kids are getting it early on and then they're continuing it through their teen years. Obviously, body composition, limiting chronic diseases, helping build muscle, bone and joint strength it's a huge deal, especially for if they're doing impact things like sports. Mental health obviously is a big deal. We know more about that today. There is so much out there where it does lower anxiety, it helps mood, helps stress, focus, attention. There's just so many things that it helps improve with that. And we know going through that stage, we've all been through it, or we've seen our kids or grandkids go through it. And there's a lot of mood swings and anxiety and teenage things going on. So it's an important time to be able to use the gym as a way to lower kind of some of that stuff. The social cognitive aspect too is huge, especially if they're able to do it, whether they're working out with their, sport team or working out with a group like we would be doing at SOAR. That can really help build that teamwork, and whether they're going to go on and play sports or not, and the rest of their life, they're going to be doing it in work, right? So that can help for just life in general. The obvious of performance enhancement in sports, trying to help them run faster, be stronger, jump higher, all that different stuff. And then setting the stage for lifelong fitness and health. Again, it's a pretty low percentage that are going to go on to college, and even a lower that would be going on professionally if they're doing sports. But we hope that we can hopefully help some of these athletes or kids that just want to focus on their fitness to continue it. And hopefully it's a fun thing that they can do for the rest of their life. So lots of benefits there. I kind of touched on barriers for exercising at this stage. Just some things to kind of think through if you have a teen or a kid or a grandkid. Negative experiences in the gym that people always have that, whether, we have gym classes in school and stuff like that. And, you have the people that'll make fun of you and different things like that. So negative experiences can sure keep people away from exercising, especially at this age, which goes along with the self-esteem issues, depending on the environment that they're in. Time, obviously, and that's going to be a big one for a lot of the stages, but there's at this age, obviously we got more activities, we got more friends, we got more homework. There's lots going on, right? Lack of knowledge and support. Maybe they really want to, but they don't have the right coaching or support to do things the right way. I know a lot of kids or parents that'll come to us and their kids are doing open gym at, just a regular gym, and they're going there and they're kind of doing workouts off of TikTok or Instagram, and some of the exercises that might look cool. And it's like, oh man, they don't even know what they're doing there. Too many activities and little to no recovery. I thought I was busy when I was in high school, and they are way busier now. It is wild, all the stuff that's going on. So we'll have people that'll be coming into SOAR, and it's like, man, they're playing 2 different sports. They're coming into SOAR. They're doing team activities. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, how much is too much, right? Sometimes we have a thinking at all stages of our life that more is better, and sometimes more is not better. And there needs to be some rest and recovery. So figuring out how we can exercise when there's so much going on. Some negative influences that might even create barriers, but this is kind of when you can start getting into a stage of ego lifting is what I'm calling it. So you might be in the gym with your friends and we're lifting to see who can lift the most weight, which can be fun and competitive, right? But sometimes we're doing things unsafe. So I feel like that can be a huge negative influence for some kids. The supplement industry is such a big industry nowadays, and I feel like kids are learning more about it. They'll have friends that do it, and we have all sorts of questions. Should I do creatine? Should I be doing pre-workout? Should I be doing this? And I just feel like it can get introduced too early for these kids, and they don't know what they're putting into their bodies. Social media influencers, obviously, anybody can be an expert nowadays on the internet, right? We have Chat GPT now too, where you could probably get your own workout plan and boom, you got it there. However, some of these Instagram, TikTok guys or gals are there. They want followers, they want views, right? So they're going to be putting out stuff that looks really pretty on social media and maybe isn't the safest thing to do. So those I feel like can be negative influences. There's also really good ones out there too. Working the mirror muscles. So working the muscles that we can see, right? Working our chest, working our arms. This is probably more the boys than the girls, but just not having that kind of back to the knowledge of I just want to do this to to look good, which can obviously be important, but there's so much more that can go with that. So I feel like those can be negative ways of working out too. So exercise recommendations at this age range, obviously strength training, I think, is really important. We still have a huge emphasis on form here, especially in the younger years and like the 6th grade years. And then obviously we can start making activities or exercises harder as they get older and they kind of master some of those moves. A variety of rep ranges is huge. Sometimes it could be hard to figure out how many reps should I be doing. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Compound movements, if you haven't heard what compound movements are, that would be some of the, you're working multiple joints all at once. And some common exercises that you have seen and heard would be like squats and deadlifts and bench press and bent over rows. We're working a lot of different joints all at once. We're not necessarily doing single joint activities, which not that they're bad, but like bicep curls, tricep push-downs, that would be working kind of one joint, one muscle at a time. We like adding in those compound movements that can really work the whole body as one unit to work that coordination. Addition, obviously, of other exercises, like obviously lifting can be awesome, but adding in plyometrics, which would be like jumping types of activities, power movements where maybe we're lightening the load and we're moving a little bit more explosively. And then obviously conditioning and endurance is going to be a huge one for sports, but also just for heart health and for just helping with body composition there. Again, into the sports, you'll hear me talk about sports a lot in here, but in-season and off-season training in sports, we see a lot of people that will come in off-season and do really good. They'll go in-season and it's over, like they're not working out anymore. It's just their practices and stuff, which after a while you start seeing throughout the year, not every kid, but there's going to be some wear down, some injuries. And then we start losing that power, losing that strength. So what can we do in season that isn't adding too much in? And usually what we do for that is more maintenance or injury prevention type of stuff to help in season, to help these athletes be able to, keep the gains they got in the off season and continue that on, where it's a little bit more higher intensity, lower volume, where we're just working maybe 5 reps of a little bit heavier of a weight, and we're not doing that high rep range type of thing. And then obviously off season was where you can really focus on the building of strength and performance when you have a little bit lower intensity and a higher volume. Periodization, if you haven't heard of that, would be kind of going through blocks during the year where this is preseason, this is in season, and the training kind of changes throughout those instead of just stopping, which I think is really important for injury prevention, which I think is lacking today. Training with a purpose versus making bodies sore constantly. We hear this a lot. Like, it's super easy to, like, anybody can give you a really hard workout that you're just like toast from and sore for the next week from. And sometimes like, I felt like that's good to be sore. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be sore, but we do not have to be sore after every workout. So that's something to keep in mind in order to see. And this is it for any stage too. But having some sort of progression plan can be really important at this stage so that you can kind of see where you're at and track it. Obviously the tracking with that. And do we need to be sore after workout? We don't. Support system, I think, is huge. Working out with friends, teammates, or family, trying to find people that could do it together. And sometimes that family activity, if they're not in sports, can be really cool. And then at this stage, learning and growing in fitness, it just goes beyond sports. Obviously, if there's kids that are in sports, it really does. So those are kind of our big recommendations there. So where to start with the plan? Again, form over weight with a focus on building strength, power, speed, agility, endurance. Those are kind of our 5 pillars that we focus on with our kids. Always a proper warm up, where we are, like Keith touched on, doing dynamic types of things, right? Where we're stretching as we're moving, not necessarily like just touching our toes and stuff like that. So places to start, we generally have at SOAR kids coming in 2 or 3 times a week. That's a great place to start. There obviously can be more to that for more advanced kids and athletes, but that's a great place to start where we can do more of a total body focus with them. Could even be more days. That's what I put there. And you could split body parts that they're working on, lower body, upper body, different stuff like that. There's all sorts of different splits you can do. Hour and a half workouts. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. Doesn't have to be that long. Absolutely can be shorter. There's different ways to make it shorter. You could do exercises together. You can do circuits where it's a big group together. We can do hits where we're working hard for short amounts of time and burning more calories, maybe a little bit more power. 8 to 12 exercises we feel like is kind of the sweet spot for this range, and honestly for a lot of age ranges. And if you're hitting a plateau, like, try to change it up. It's okay to change it up time to time, but it's also okay to keep the same exercises in there and try to progress it over time. We could stick to the basics and have a slow plan of progression. I feel like sometimes at this age we can that was easy. I'm going to go up by 50 pounds, and it's that's when we get hurt right there. So it's okay if it's a slow progression plan. Your body's going to thank you for that. I kind of gave an example of honestly what I do as well, in terms of set and rep range. So this is kind of a cool way to have a plan. Week 1, I'm doing high reps, lower weight. And then week 2, a little bit lower reps. I'm upping my weight. Week 3, a little bit lower reps, upping my weight. Week 4, a little bit lower reps, upping my weight to the heaviest there. And that cycle you could do over and over again. The next time I come up to that week 1, I'm trying to do heavier than the last week 1. So that's kind of one easy way to have a plan. And then you see that progression every week as you go up. So yeah, I think that might've been it for that stage. Do you guys have any questions in terms of the teen years? Anything that I didn't touch on? Anything else that you wanted me to kind of go further into? All right. Awesome. All right. Well, Keith is going to dive into the next one.
All right. So the next 2 age groups, that's Balanced Health's cream of the crop. Okay. 19 through 60s and 70s. Okay. So we might spend a little bit more time kind of going into this age range. 19 to 40 years old. So in my opinion, this is the golden age, the golden zone to really start owning your health and your fitness. From my personal experience, I know that to be true, because if I hadn't started to develop these habits right now, I'd be in a world of hurt, physically, health-wise, whatnot. And it's hard to do that. And this is a time where you can develop and maintain extremely high levels of fitness. So Lois is a great example. Absolutely kills it. Her nickname is the Energizer Bunny, right? And in the gym. She's worked so hard for so long, she can just maintain that every year, right? Which that's fantastic. So if you try and go from 0 to 60, when you're 25, it's ouch, right?
I'm not in that age.
I know. That's what I'm saying, though, is you probably started in that age range, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that today.
And the other cool thing, there's so much information at this age of things you can do to help your health, fitness, blah, blah, blah. There's so much out there. And that can be hard to, go through sometimes and pick out what should I do? How should I do it? Who should teach me? Should I teach myself? So on and so forth. Okay. So once again, benefits, you might recognize some of these from the past 2. Nothing really new on there, except that this is the age where you have all the hormones, hopefully all the money, confidence to really support your health habits, right? And you can make huge strides and set yourself up for decades of health and longevity, not only mentally, socially, and body-wise. I love the idea of taking ownership of your health and your exercise habits in this period of life. Because you're going to, at 19, it's college, having fun, don't really think about what I'm eating or doing to my body. I still want to exercise and look good. You're not really focused on health. And then you get into your mid-20s, it's I'm starting to have some aches and pains. Should I go get blood work done? So on and so forth. And then when you do, and the doctor, I had this experience, the doctor was these numbers are terrible. And I'm I'm 24. And so I had to make decisions I got to start taking care of myself more than just the typical taquitos, Doritos, and Mountain Dew diet that most college students get in the habit of doing, right? And so that was a big motivator for me, because I still like to compete. I still like to, play pickleball, basketball whenever I can, and just generally push myself. And I know Kyle does too. But health becomes a huge factor. And competition, honestly, in this age range, you're coming right out of either playing sports in high school or learning that through college. I had to get the best grades, blah, blah, stuff like that. So you're trying to find what scratches that itch, right? And this is 2 or 3 decades where your body is just built to produce muscle, right? It's before things start declining. You have lower levels of testosterone and all that stuff. And so this is the time, age range, you need to take advantage of where your body's naturally at. Anyone want to add any benefits they've seen or noticed from that age?
Kate, one of the hardest things with that age is you're also raising a family.
Exactly.
You don't take time.
That's a perfect segue. That was not a plant. So, barriers. So there are a lot of barriers because, you know, get out of college. You want to start a family, find your wife, husband, get your career going. Like, how do I pay all these bills, taxes, all sorts of stuff? Who am I outside of my family? You know, all these things. And then it's like, okay, I have my wife and husband. I'm starting a family and I have a career and I may or may not have health issues. And it's like, I have kids now, family, you know, so these things build on each other. It's like, those are huge barriers. Everyone knows that. And those are not to be taken lightly. And that's where it comes to having community that accepts you for being at that spot and be like, hey, get it, come in when you can. Like, I'm going to keep checking on you type of thing. Let's get creative with how you work out, exercise, like bring the baby. Let's go running. Well, sure, run with a baby, but do squats with the baby, something like that. Then personally, there's an excessive amount of programs, gyms, information out there. Like, if you search, like, how do I get fit or how do I lose weight? You're going to see 1.5 billion things. You're going to see TikTok trainers. You're going to see local trainers. You're going to see these big gym trainers. You're going to see take a pill. You're going to see do this diet, do that diet, do this other diet plus this diet. You know, it's like you see that, so it's like, no, not even going to touch it. You know, money's a big one. Things are expensive. Quality instruction and programs are expensive. And this is a time where you might have a chronic disease or injury that keeps popping up and you just don't know how to get past it. Right. And so it kind of shuts down your desire to push yourself, exercise or, health wise. Time fits into all of these. Motivation fits into that. And there are medical conditions that, you know, can be early onset where you have high blood pressure, diabetes, you know, any sort of cardiovascular, anything, where you have to be conscious about the exercise you pick, diet you pick, all that. So all that, like, you look at all that and you're like, so I have like 3 seconds a day to exercise and take care of myself. Like, fantastic. And I can't sleep. Negative influences, I think, is people's opinions on why it works for you and why it's going to work the best for you. Everyone's different. Everyone's going to respond to exercise different, whether it's weightlifting, cardio, well, you name it. Everyone's going to react different to it. I don't care. You can have a large sample size, and generally people go that way. But I guarantee if you take me and Kyle, put them on the same program, we're going to be like all over the place with our advances, right? That's why it's so important, like, get to know the person that's training or giving the program, understand their philosophies. There's trainers, I mean, in Colorado, I'm pretty sure it's still this way. You can just walk in and say, I'm a trainer. And legally, in the state of Colorado, you're fine, right? That's why Kyle and I, we prefer, if we ever were to hire people, it'd be like, what's your certifications? What's your, you know, do you have a degree? And then, like, train us. Because you can have all this education and whatnot, and the trainer could absolutely just be a, you know, piece of baloney or something. Quick results. I mean, there's a huge fad right now of young kids getting on testosterone, all this stuff. And that needs to be educated first and foremost. And once again, the cost, like, if you know you want an individual program, the cost of looking that up with a trainer, it's going to be a pretty penny. Wish it weren't, but that's just kind of how it is right now with inflation and everything that goes with that. Questions on that? That was a lot.
If you were to talk to somebody who, both sides of you for it, because nutrition and exercise go together like this. Yep. But I know so many people, they do one or the other and say, I don't have energy to exercise, but I'm eating right.
Yeah.
I don't know how to encourage them.
So for me, at first I'd find out where they're working towards. Like, what's your goal with this? Is it to have more energy, lose weight, and just kind of find the root motivator for them? Because if it is for them just losing weight, you can do that with diet. But if they're like, oh man, I want to keep up with my kids, or like, I'm scared of like hurting as an older person, something like that, that's when like, okay, you said this, so like, here's the research on it, like here's proven facts, and then have them come talk to Kyle and I, and we'll convince them. I know it's difficult because all these factors combined, and it's like people still have to own it and want it themselves, as much as we want it for them and know how it benefits them. We can talk till we're blue in the face and be like, it's going to work. I promise. Here's all the research. They can just be like, what? I'm just sad. I don't need it. That's the hardest pill to swallow. And sometimes Colin and I just have to be like, okay, like, we're here for you. Let us know if you have any questions. We want you to do this, but we totally understand. Sometimes you just can't get it through to people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think everyone's experienced that to some degree. I've experienced it personally with myself, talking to myself. It's like, I am in this field and I'm doing everything the opposite of what I should be doing. So, okay, recommendations. So this is pretty broad. I'm not going to go too much into it. Essentially, like, if I were talking to a 20-year-old, and they were like, I have no idea what to do with exercise or anything, then I'd be like, here's all your options. Pick one that looks interesting and let's try it. If it works and sticks, let's go. If it doesn't, here's this option, and so I try to cover all the big basic stuff. There's a lot of strength training styles, HIIT stuff, CrossFit stuff, triathlons, long distance running, yoga stuff, powerlifting, just basic sports, cycling, swimming. The world is your oyster on that type of stuff at that age. So I would just encourage, go out and do and try, as long as you're safe about it. Plan, once again, being with so many styles of training, I'm always in favor of building muscle, because muscle with longevity, it's been linked. More muscle mass you have, better longevity you have. Essentially, whatever you choose, talk to someone who's certified in that, has some experience in that field, get to know them, get to know what they stand for, what their product is, and make sure they have your medical history and health history, and make sure they're asking those questions of like, oh, I had this when I was 20, like, should I be worried? It's like, no, or yes, like, let's talk to your doctor once again. Going back to the exercise plan in the last group with Kyle, you always want to warm up, get the blood pumping, get the muscle temperature up. 5 to 15 minutes of getting the blood pumping, stretches, working on injury sites, whatever it might be. Always want to do that. And then based on whatever training style you do, 30 to 60 minutes, much more than that, and you're getting into the just degrading the body too much, unless you've been training at that level for a long time. I think Kyle and I both keep it around 60 minutes to hour and a half on our workouts. Always takes time to cool down and stretch. I'm terrible at this. I'll be the first one to say it. But you can tell if you ever ask me to stretch my hamstrings, I guarantee you guys all can beat me at stretching hamstrings. It helps push nutrients and fluids in there, which is essential for recovery. And then consistency. Whatever you choose, be consistent with it. Even if you develop consistency in the first 2-3 months, and then you're like, oh, holidays here, I'm going to miss a week. You're sick. And you're like, oh, I'm already back after the holidays. And Kyle, I know this intimately, but if we have families and friends working out all the time that are planning on coming in and they're planning on you being there, then it's like, oh yeah, like I have no choice but to go, right? And it just becomes a part of life. That's why they always say lifestyle change with it type of thing. That's the lifestyle change. Then again, like the last one, track what you're doing so you know if you're reaching your goals and you can progress to those goals. Okay, any questions real quick about that? All that information? All right.
All right, so middle-aged adults, we're kind of thinking like the 41 to 60 years old. benefits, activities of daily living and function. I feel like we're starting to get into more of that. Activities of daily living, obviously, is kind of like it sounds. It'd be stuff that we're doing throughout the day, right? We want to continue to be able to do that stuff well, with more stamina, with less pain. I think one of the closest things we have to the fountain of youth is exercising, being active, and it's not a one size fits all. That doesn't mean you have to be in a gym. That just means we're trying to be active, right? Honestly, the people that I see look the youngest are the people that exercise regularly. Doesn't always work that way, but also on blood panels, we end up seeing that too. So, it's super important, and it's highly important at this age. Building strength to protect your joints, bones, and connective tissue. Injury prevention obviously is a big one at this stage and every stage. Balance and stability. We start getting a little bit more nervous about balance. It's something that can like sneak up all of a sudden. It's like, wow, I can't stand on one leg. And then obviously as we get into the next stage, that can be really important. Falling and breaking bones can be a big issue. We start getting stiff muscles and joints, right? It starts happening at that stage. We see it all the time. This is another kind of age that we see most often in our gym here at Balance Health. And so the more we can exercise, the more we can be mobile, the better we're going to feel there. Energy and mood obviously is a big one. We can be so tired and burned out on this stage. Reduce chances of chronic diseases and issues. Obviously, could already be some that are happening, or it can help set the stage to where we're trying to limit that from happening here in the future. And then helping better overall health and blood panels. Like we do big old blood panels here. Some of you have gotten them done, and it shows us a lot of stuff, right? And we have seen some really cool stuff, which is fun to be able to be in a doctor's office and exercise of like, I had diabetes or pre-diabetes, and I am out of that now. I mean, it's just really cool what exercise and eating better and being active can do. So all sorts of benefits for sure. Some barriers for this stage. Obviously, this is still a stage now where the kids are starting to grow up a little bit. Time is a big one. This is where we see people put their health on the back burner because they have so much to do to take care of their families. So you got kids, you got work, you got other responsibilities, physical limitations, health issues. Obviously, we can start getting some bigger health issues at this stage, and it can be, I just can't do it anymore. And it just can be something that isn't that part of your life. Harder on the body to work out and recover. It just does as we get older. Obviously, it starts getting to the point where we're sore for longer, or if we're injured, it takes longer to recover. And it can sometimes be hard to exercise with all that going on. Disappointment and embarrassment about where they're at and what they used to do. We see that a lot. Like, man, I used to be able to do this in college, and now I can't even lift this. And we'll obviously talk about it, but we need a shift of thinking there, but that can be a huge barrier. Using age as an excuse. I hear it all the time. I'm this age now. I should be hurting. I shouldn't be able to do this anymore. And it really makes me sad to hear that. Hormones, obviously, for especially women, can start becoming an issue at this point. That really can be a huge barrier. Lack of drive or knowledge to know what to do. And finances, some of them are in every stage there, but definitely some barriers. Negative influences, Keith talked on it, quick fixes at this stage. Obviously, we're so busy. There's a lot going on. What can I do to get me to my weight the fastest? What exercise can I do that doesn't take very long, that gets me to where I want to be? Social media and the internet, again, you can find whatever you want to find on social media and the internet that kind of backs up what you want to believe. And a hyper focus on weight, I feel like, is such a negative influence. We have here an InBody, which some of you have done, and there's so many people that are working out really well and trying to hit their goals, and they see their weight just doing this or going up, and it can just drive people away from the gym right away. But the InBody is really cool because we can look at your lean muscle mass, we can look at your body fat percentage. And even though you're seeing this on the scale, your skeletal muscle mass is going up, your body fat is going down, and your body is just made differently, right? Like even if our weight is going up a little bit, like having more lean muscle and less body fat is going to help you for longevity in the future, right? So that hyper focus on weight can be a big one. Okay, so exercise recommendations. I have a lot of shifting in thinking here. So bettering your health is being there for your family. So something to kind of think about. I feel like that can be made an excuse, and it's obviously like like it's a huge part of life. But there's going to be a time where you're not going to be able to take care of your family anymore if you don't take your health seriously. So that shift in thinking, I think, can be huge. Another shift in thinking, you might actually have more energy when adding exercise. I think sometimes, obviously, at either before work or after work, sometimes it can be like, I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing. And it is a weird thing about exercise, but you can get more energy from that, especially with the right type of program. It can really help. Another shift in thinking, just because you are a certain age does not mean you have to stop doing things or in pain all the time. There's things that happen as we age, absolutely, but there are ways that you can lessen that or limit that. And so just using age as like, I'm not doing it anymore, I can't do it anymore, just shouldn't be an excuse. A less focus on weight. We talked on that a little bit, and more focus on how you feel, how clothes are fitting, body fat decreasing, lean muscle increase. Like Keith said, like muscle gain, can be a good indicator for health and longevity. That doesn't mean we have to be big old ripped bodybuilders, right? Lean muscle mass. You can see the guys that have that, we have a lower body fat percentage and a higher muscle mass. It doesn't mean we're all bulky. Find what you enjoy to do and what brings you motivation. There's no one size fits all. Doesn't mean, like I said earlier, you don't have to necessarily be in a gym. If there's things outdoors that you really like to do that. Be active. Community brings enjoyment and accountability. We find that, like, sometimes people come in and want a program, we'll give it to them. They do it for a little bit and it stops after a while because they don't have somebody to be there for them to kind of hold them accountable. And that's where small group training has been huge for us here at Balance Health, because people come in, you're at the same stage as the people are in there, you build community, you build friendships, and it can be a really cool thing to do together. Mix in different types of workouts, strength, cardio, HIIT, stretching, recovery, etc. It doesn't always have to be a strength training workout. There's all sorts of different stuff you can do. Kind of goes back to what you love. And possible shift in thinking from high impact activities on joints. This is where we start seeing joints that are getting worn out, right? Where it might be starting to get some bone on bone and different stuff like that. And so there's ways you can still exercise and not hurt yourself more, for sure, by doing lower impact stuff. I'll quickly go through the exercise planning ideas. These are kind of general recommendations, but strength training can be something that we can do 2 to 3 times per week. Cardio training can be 3 to 5 times per week. This doesn't mean we're going out for a run or anything. It could just be going out for a walk or trying to be active that way. Combo sessions, we have a lot of people that come in 2 or 3 days a week in the gym, and we include strength training. We include cardio in that, where we're kind of doing stuff together, where you're kind of getting more bang for your buck there. Compound movements I talked about earlier are still huge at this age. HIIT, high intensity interval training, that's the more bang for your buck. Again, you could do a 30-minute workout, burn a bunch of calories, and be done, instead of going out for a 2-hour run where your knees just hurt afterwards and burn the same amount of calories. Not that running is bad, but always include a proper warm-up. We've talked that. We've done it a bunch. Dynamic stuff decreases injury and helps your workout performance. Workouts should include single limb exercises. Remember, we went back to balance. Single limb stuff is going to be important to be able to kind of work that balance in there so you can be strong on both sides. You might have a weaker side or injuries going on. Balance and stability stuff is huge, and mobility exercises so that we can continue to have a good posture at this age. Sample workout 2 to 3 times a week. 8 to 12 exercises. I kind of have, hey, let's pick a lower, upper, total, and core in there. Now, I'm not going to get too into this. If you have questions or want to email me later, you can. This just shows a little bit more how you can plan your workouts instead of just like, I'm going to do this and this and this and not know what you're doing. Knee dominant exercises would be like a squat. Hip dominant exercises would be like a stiff-legged deadlift or a glute bridge or working on the posterior side. Upper body vertical push would be doing more of like a pressing type of thing. Upper body vertical would be doing more of like a lat pull down. Upper body horizontal push would be more of like a dumbbell chest press laying flat on our back. And an upper body horizontal pull would be more like a bent over single arm row. So you can see you can plan this stuff and have a little bit more where I just work my entire body and I have that plan. And now I can change my exercises in and out. And then 3 sets can be a great place to be at. Modify and adjust depending on your progress. Slow and steady is huge at this stage. It's better than big and fast changes. It really is. You can really destroy your body if you're going too fast and too hard. And then we've done it. We've all done it. You get hurt and then you're out of it for a long period of time and you got to start over, right? So we love the slow and steady. Something that you can do for the rest of your life. Range of motion is our friend, trying to figure out warm-ups and exercises or on off days where you can really work on range of motion exercise, especially in problem areas like your back, your shoulders, your knees, hips. And cool down, this is where we can also have the range of motion stuff. So any questions on this stage? Anything that I didn't touch on or anything that you wanted to hear? All right. Okay. Last one.
All right. At Balance Health, we have a very awesome population of 61 and up. If you ever met Art, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. I would arguably say this is one of the most important age ranges that you should absolutely stay active. We see it time and time again. Someone comes in. I've been sedentary for 18 years because of XYZ. Like, I just feel like absolute crud, and I want to get my life back on track, keep up with the grandkids, whatever it might be. I love it. Get in here. Kyle and I can help you. Let's get you moving. See where you're at. Our biggest thing is you have to have their appropriate exercise for this age range. If they're really fit and been doing it a long time, go ahead and plug them into the harder classes. If they can barely walk in a straight line, guess what we're starting with? Let's start walking in a straight line every day you come in until you feel comfortable with that. So that's kind of our focus with exercise there, and kind of our attitude towards that age range.
So lots of benefits. Again, obviously there's some common ones here, but the maintaining of muscle mass, obviously we're seeing a big decrease in muscle mass at this stage. Is something that will naturally start happening even younger than that. But muscle mass starting to be linked to longevity. We've hit on that a lot of times. So obviously this can be a huge thing at this age. It helps protect joints and stability of the joints. We start getting more instability, more pain. So it can be really protecting there. Obviously, our muscles can stay strong for really a long time, but our joints can wear out. And that's really where we can see the limiting factor there. But this can really, really help, and it can help lessen stuff for sure. Improves coordination and balance. Again, that's probably like one of the biggest things at this stage. If we're, like Keith was saying, if we have a balance issue, we're hitting balance and trying to strengthen in those ways first before we're doing anything else, because we want to limit falls as much as possible. Cardiovascular health, obviously keeping that heart muscle strong is super important at any stage, but obviously very important here. And it can lessen a whole lot of cardiac events for sure, big time. And we could pull up numbers on just the percentage of how much that can decrease stuff. It can improve bone density. Obviously, we start getting into osteoporosis or osteopenia here at this stage, where we fall and we break something. It can be really easy. It can be a really not very hard fall. And helps prevent that bone density decline. Immune system function, it can be a huge immune system booster, which we don't want to get sick at this stage, right? The really serious stuff and being unfit, not moving, you can be sick all the time. You really can. Socializing, we have at 11 o'clock every day of the week, we have a senior aged fitness class, and it is just really fun, like to see them come in and work out together, and not only be working out, but just like they're excited to be there with each other. It just can be a cool time for them to continue to come out and do that with each other. Injury prevention, surgery prevention, lots of chronic injuries can be rehabilitated before surgery may be required. So that's where we can work on some prehab type of stuff and strengthening some of those weak areas to maybe be able to stay away from surgery in the future. And physical activity is linked to lower risks of dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's a big one too. Obviously at this age, it just can keep that mind and body active. Reinforces everyday activities and enjoyment of life. So all very important things, huge benefits at this stage.
Okay. I like to go with, not barriers, but actual contraindications, medical conditions that Colin and I would go to Dr. Morgan or one of the providers and be like, is this person safe to exercise with us? Or do we need to send them to a specialist so they can get that rehab, cardiac rehab, whatever physical therapy they need before they come see us? That's one line we don't cross. We don't think we can do it all. There are things where if they have it, you got to go somewhere else with someone with specialized education, experience, all that. Now, once we get to know the person and their health history, which they should always give us a health history, we feel very comfortable once we start working with them. We know what they can do. When they get to a certain spot, we know they're going to start hurting, and we don't want to get to that point. So in the framework of our small group classes at Balance, we know almost everybody's ailments that they're going through, what things we would, modifications have them do for certain exercises. And so some of the biggest ones we look at heart stuff, cardiac conditions. It could be blood pressure, chest pain, prior heart attacks, irregular heartbeats, anything that has to do with the heart. We're like, okay, do you have permission from your doctor to be here? If they're like, nah, I don't really want it. It's like, no, let's go do that. COPD, that's a tough one. Struggle breathing. So you got to be very, very conscious and careful with any client that has that. And at that age, like, you can get a bad infection really quick and then be recovering for months after that. And so Kyle and I have worked with numerous people. We'll see them one day, month later, they're gone for a month and they come back. Like, I had pneumonia. And it's like, okay, that's a flag in our head. Is like, we're going to be super easy on you today. See how your body responds, see how your lungs respond, so on and so forth. Fractures and tears and all sorts of stuff, arthritis happen in this age range, and you just have to kind of roll with it as a trainer. If they come in and are like, oh yeah, I bruised my arm, and then you look at the arm and the whole thing's bruised, and it's like, ouch. Like, we're going to be really careful with the movements we do with the arm today. And if they have a fracture, could be osteoporosis, could be osteopenia, you just don't know. And so you just want to be very careful putting weight on it, even though weight and strength movements are going to help repair that bone to a certain degree. Diabetes, cognitive issues. We've had some clients that have started to suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's, and that's tough because you want them in there, it's going to help, but sometimes they have to go to a specialized clinic or something like that. Compromised immune system. I'm sure everyone saw this with the recent COVID stuff. Like, everyone's freaking about spreading COVID, and that's something like with that older population. It's like, I don't want to give this person, something that legitimately could give them pneumonia and send them to the hospital. Right? That's something I feel strongly about. It's like, if we're sick, we're not, we're taking precautions, so on and so forth. And then severe balance issues. This starts to crop up with like neuropathy and, stuff like that. We've seen a lot of cancer survivors from chemotherapy and stuff that messes with nerves. And you just have to be very aware of that. If they're not able to do stuff standing up, do it sitting down, that type of thing. Always consult with a doctor or provider if you're ever uncomfortable. Bring someone into exercise that you're with, or recommending them to somewhere. Questions on that? There's a lot, and we try and work around as much as we can in our scope. This is the biggest thing. We don't go outside of our scope. Yeah. Questions?
So with all that in mind, that doesn't mean we can't be working out at this stage, right? That's just kind of throwing out a lot of things that could be barriers or contraindications. And so exercise recommendations, we do a lot of low impact resistance training and definitely total body. We want the body to work well together here at this stage. Steady state cardiovascular can be huge, where steady state is going to be more like we're on the elliptical or treadmill or bike or something like that for longer periods of time, trying to keep our heart working at a higher heart rate for longer periods of time without necessarily going super hard. Functional training is huge. You'll hear that thrown out a lot, and we definitely use it in our gym, but we want things to mimic maybe daily activity types of things, like a bending and lifting, picking up a box and putting it up on a shelf, or stepping up on a stair, or different stuff like that. That's really where we try to mimic that, so that people at this stage, obviously there's specific goals, but sometimes there's a goal of just, I want to get out of my chair easier. I want to be able to walk up the stairs without getting tired. And so that functional training, I think, could be really huge. Movement in general that is sustainable. Sometimes there's things in the gym that is just unable to do. So trying to figure out some sort of plan where there's some movement, less sitting. Sitting can be so bad at this stage. Too much sitting is really bad. Stretching and mobility work is going to be huge. Obviously, we want to keep our posture. We can start getting into this position as we're getting older, right? And then all of a sudden we have all sorts of issues. And so we want to make sure we keep that posture well, and that's going to help. Balance specific, we touched on that a lot, and some prehab and rehab types of stuff where we can really work on maybe smaller aches and pains, or just things that are maybe deconditioned, or some muscular imbalances that have developed from injuries and different stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. Take a picture of this one. So you're right. Essentially, it boils down to being active. And when it comes to strength and resistance training, total body every day, just like Kyle was talking about his last one, making sure you can do those exercises safely. It's still challenging, but don't have the expectation you're going to do, what I did 20, 30, 40 years ago. Always a warm up, make sure they can cool down or safe to drive. And we always warm up problem areas too. Someone has bad back, we get their back warm, shoulders, all that stuff. Okay. 2 to 3 days a week. That's the other big thing. You don't want to overdo it at that age because we want you coming back in every week. So you do what you can. And if you need to take a day off, take a day off. All right. That was a very short summation of that one. All right. Any last ending questions on anything we just talked about?
Where's SOARS? Where's that?
So SOAR actually was born here in Balance Health, and it started in 2014. SOAR is located pretty close. We're just off of 59th and 10th, over where that old CrossFit was. They're still over there, but we're in that kind of same building over there. And so, yeah, we kind of split in last summer before that, 2023. It just got to be too many things going on in there. And so now our focus over there is mostly with athletes in the 4th up through college age, and kind of kids in that age range. So, yeah.
Zeppelin for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So, yep. And we have different types of programs where we have that 4th and 5th grade program. We have a SOAR Foundations that's a little bit more basic for athletes to work through kind of our 5 pillars that I touched on. And then we have a SOAR Plus where it's like, hey, I want to, especially at your age, I want to focus a little bit more specifically on a certain sport or skill and develop that. Then we have more individualized programs and stuff like that too. So, yep. Yeah. And we have our cards up here and stuff like that too, if you ever want to come by and check it out and ask any more questions.